Hello. Hello. This is my first official live, so I might be working out some kinks while we're doing this here. Hello. Hello. This is my first official live, so I might be working out some kinks while. Okay. I didn't this has been something that I have been wanting to do for a long time, and I just took the plunge. I just took the plunge and I just decided, I am going to show up, see who shows up along with me. This is something I want to start doing every week. I would like to do it every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know I started a little bit late. I kind of, because I didn't advertise or promote or anything like that, I might just be talking to the air tonight. I don't really know. That's okay. Because I wanted to make sure that I could work out kinks and everything too. The theme that I wanted to share tonight. Second. Okay, minus dogs killing each other. These are some of the kinks I might be working out. So I'll start this out by saying that the whole purpose of doing these lives is because we want to thrive after coming out of Jehovah's Witnesses. And you can watch the videos, but the interaction, I think, is crucial to being able to figure out, find your voice, being able to express yourself. And so I figured the live platform is something that I really want to make sure that I offer you guys too. So in the comments, if anybody ends up watching this, if there's topics specifically that you would like to hear, please drop a comment. I've got somebody that's getting ready to come on right now. So hold on, let me see how this is sharing. Like I said, I'm kind of working out kinks right now too. So give me just a second here. Hi, Barry. Okay, I'm gonna try to figure out how to share. I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to share this link. Nope, hold on, hold on. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, so I'm pretty sure there's a way to do a clickable link too. I'm not sure I know how to do yet. Guess. Okay, if anybody wants to click on that link, that would be awesome. I'd love to see if it works. So like I said, tonight I really wanted, this is just kind of like my introductory thing where we're going to be talking about thriving after leaving Jehovah's Witnesses. Probably most of you know, I came from 5 generations. I was over 20 years a regular pioneer. I've been out for about 12 years. And when I got out, hold on. We have Noel with us.
Right.
Yay! It works! It works! It works! No, stay down. Can you hear me, Noel? Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. we'll wait for her to get her audio set up here. So when I got out 12 years ago, I guess it was about 2014, I had nothing. I basically had a backpack. I obviously hadn't saved for my retirement. I lost everyone from my entire family. And I basically had to start over at zero, 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 zero. And so, I didn't have a future. I didn't have education. I didn't have a support structure. Most at like a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, I was homeschooled. So it wasn't even like I had old friends from school that I could go, hi, remember me? I was completely, completely, completely on my own. Lost over 50 members of my family. So I had to create my life literally, literally, literally from zero.
Right.
Hey, girl.
Hey, is it working now? It wouldn't work on my laptop.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, very good.
Okay. So coming from zero, I've managed in 12 years to become retired on a healing retreat here in Ecuador on 40 acres. And it wasn't because I inherited money. It wasn't because, I'm super smart with a fantastic education. It was because I chose to heal. And I used the tool neuro-linguistic programming, which we're going to talk a little bit. I've had people ask me to explain that a little bit before. So most of you probably already know me. Noelle, would you like to say hi?
Hello, my name is Noelle Nichols. I am a menopause coach for the neurodivergent women, and I also have a full-time job currently in recruitment. So,
Yeah.
Back calling in from Texas.
Yep. Yep. And you also have a background in the cult, so
Yes.
you're familiar with that background too. How long have you been out?
Oh goodness. I've been out probably close to 12 years now, but I didn't tell my family until about a year and a half ago.
Okay. Okay. So I wanted the first introductory session here to be talking a little bit about the steps that are necessary for recreating your life post apocalyptic cult. And we're talking about NLP. You're fairly familiar with NLP. Would you be comfortable sharing just a little bit what you felt has helped you in your healing journey?
Well, most definitely NLP did the job. I did try a lot of other different methods, talk therapy. You kind of work your way up until you figure out what works for you. But it wasn't until I did NLP that, things I started to be able to address the things that I hadn't addressed before and start to do so in a much more healthy way where now the triggers, I don't have a reaction, like I just have a really emotional and physical reaction to them. But now it's like, okay, that feels uncomfortable. What is the underlying current for that? And I'm able to kind of pause. Um, it has helped me so tremendously. I believe it saved my life.
Yeah, I said
Mhm.
that. I said that for myself too, that if it hadn't
Mhm.
been for this specific tool, I don't know how I would have made it because I had literally lost everything. You know, I wasn't sure that I wanted to live. I didn't know what I had to live for. And so I kind of figured that if I could heal myself, that would be good.
Mhm.
And that not being here would always be the plan B in case I couldn't figure out how to heal. I think maybe part of the challenge that people have coming out of the cult too is, I remember it being so taboo to have any sort of therapy or anybody who talked to a therapist, you're pretty much just weak in the truth and they're going to lead you to the devil. So coming out of the cult, sometimes we might have that same kind of mentality, that we do it on our own, we don't really need help. And maybe there's some people that might be true for, but in my case, I lost 38 years to the cult. I don't have time to take another 38 years to heal. I don't have time to take 10 years to heal. I wanted to be on the rocket ship to healing. I wanted it to be accelerated because I didn't just want to limp along. I wanted to thrive. I wanted to thrive. I wanted to create something meaningful. you know? And the use of the word trigger too, that is, obviously that comes from trauma. But so many ex Jehovah's Witnesses have triggers, you know, where you can't, I've even heard of people that can't even hear the word prayer and it triggers them, or even think about the word Bible and it feels like it triggers them. We've got so much emotion attached to the past, and that gets in the way. So what do you have anything you'd like to share about why it's important to heal triggers? What do you think about that, Noel?
Well, first off, it'll save you money because rage causes you to throw things. Um,
Smashing computers isn't cheap.
I didn't go that far. Well, yes, I did. My TV, I did by accident. I wasn't aiming. I had no aim. I didn't play softball. But no, it's very important because if you're holding in all those emotions, your body is at dis-ease and you're just a petri dish for disease. So you've got to get it out. I had so much, toxins and so much emotional buildup from just, going through life, being a
Mhm.
mom, going to work, chasing after my teenagers. Now they're adults. Just going through the grind, you get in autopilot. And then the next thing for me, it was menopause came and I lost hormones and I had another hormone and that was it. My body said no more. So it's
Yeah.
very important that you deal with it now because the little steps you take now will make tremendous strides quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Um, the hormonal changes and life changes and stuff like that. If the more trauma that you've healed before that happens, the more of an advantage you're going to have when life happens.
Most definitely. Wish I had known that when I was in my 30s, but I don't know if I would have listened then.
I know, I know. That's one of the topics that I probably want to talk about on one of these episodes too.
Mhm.
The lost years. I've heard people talk about, I mean, we can hold so much resentment over 20 years as a regular pioneer, 38 years in the religion. We don't get those years back. How do we not be resentful over that? You know what? Anybody who's watching too, if you could write some comments of maybe some of the topics that you'd like me to cover, I would really appreciate that because I really want this to be for you. It's what topics that do you need for healing? So we'll talk a little bit about the NLP, which is the tool that I use. It's the tool that Noel is familiar with. It stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. What that basically means is, the linguistic part, basically that means that our words are programming our neurology. You know, the brain is like a computer, and the computer uses language to program it and to create our reactions and to create our triggers. But it's also the key to being able to reprogram ourselves. And this is different. Well, what do you say something, Noel? Why do you think, or how do you think this was different than the typical talk therapy? What made it different for you, do you think?
Because it wasn't just pulling information out of me, it was drilling into what the root cause was and then replacing that thought with a different thought. And it just like just rewiring equipment. It rewired your brain.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially when during one of our sessions, it just keeps reiterating over and over, and it just starts driving you to move towards your goals that you want to achieve.
Yeah. This is fast because it's, what ends up accidentally happening sometimes. And you know what? Honestly, even sometimes the ex Jehovah's Witness support groups can kind of do this a little bit accidentally for us too, in that we're reinforcing the trauma. We can
Mhm.
reinforce trauma by telling the story because the brain doesn't know the difference between a memory and actuality. So if you tell a story, maybe about a vacation you went on to or something like that, you can trigger the feelings from that memory. Whether it's happy or whatever. But a lot of times with when we're dealing with the ex Jehovah's Witness community, as we're talking about, being disfellowshipped and we're telling our stories and stuff like that, we're actually we can actually be re-traumatizing ourselves, because as we repeat that, the brain doesn't know the difference between, oh yeah, that was 2 years ago, and oh crap, I feel that in my body right now. So we want to be careful that as we're identifying with a community that understands where we come from, we kind of speak the same language, just speak the pure ex Jehovah Witness language, but we relate to each other. But we also want to make sure that, especially on this channel, I really want to make sure that what we're talking about is how to move beyond that, how to create a new identity. So let's talk really quick about some of the important points in how NLP helps you thrive in your new world. One thing that is really, really, really important for healthy psychology is creating a future for yourself. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if the future is realistic or not. So when we were in the religion, we believed in paradise. That was actually healthy. It actually served a healthy brain function, because when the brain has something to look forward to, regardless of, it's irrelevant whether it's doable or not. When your brain has something to look forward to, that's healthy. And when we leave the religion, paradise blows up. Unfortunately, sometimes some of us keep Armageddon, which is really horrible, because now you don't have the positive and you're just looking forward to global world meltdown. So we end up kind of at this loss where, maybe you never dreamed about your future. Maybe you never had aspirations. Maybe you never had anything that you were looking forward to. So creating a healthy future for yourself is crucial to thriving on the outside, because we don't have that old future anymore. And I really, really want people, as they're stepping into this thriving zone, to really start stepping outside of the box. Because what I teach people is, if you can imagine it, you can have it. There are no limitations of what a human can do. If you can imagine it, if you can think it, there are not as many barriers as what you think. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but coming from a cult background, we were really in a very small box, that this is what's possible and that's it. And I think once you come outside of that cult box, you start realizing that, wait a second, there's a whole lot of stuff that we didn't know. There's a whole lot of stuff about science that we didn't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff about energy, about how the world works, about how the mind works, that you can harness. Because when we were in this little teeny tiny box of religion, all of that stuff was forbidden, demonic, whatever, just to keep us in control in this little bitty teeny tiny box. So when it comes to creating your future, you've got a lot more tools at your disposal than you knew. And I don't care how much time you wasted in the religion, I don't care how much you might feel like you're limited at the moment. Creating the future for yourself is really, really crucial to thriving in your new life. So what I want to ask you, what would you like to share about some of the future that you're creating? I know you're working on a lovely future.
Yeah, it's taken me a long time. I don't know how long we've been working together. It feels like a couple years at least. And I had the fear of using my voice and being seen. I was taught to be small, and that was the way to fly under the radar. It's just, don't be noticed, don't be heard, you'll be okay. So I did finally launch my YouTube channel just yesterday. You can find it at the @ neurospicy, where I'll be teaching a lot of coping skills, nutrition, just things that'll help the neurodivergent woman survive, menopause, because there's no clinical studies on that.
Okay, so that is a classic example of overcoming triggers, overcoming a lifetime of being in a cult, and creating a future for yourself. I am so proud of you.
Thank you. I feel so much better after I pushed the button. We joked about it yesterday, how I was so scared just to push the post button. How many times have I, posted silly stuff on Facebook years ago, or things like that. So yeah, it's such a relief. I'm really
I'm
happy I got
so proud of you. I'm so proud of
it.
you.
Thank you.
This is what this is what life is about. This
Yeah.
is what our freedom post cult is about. You know, our freedom came at a really high cost. And I don't know who's listening. I don't know if you're maybe in totally, you're questioning whatever stage exit point of the religion you're in is going to cost you, you know? It's going to cost you the time that you spent in the religion. It's going to cost, potentially being disfellowshipped, losing family members, definitely losing your community, losing a lot. It's expensive to leave. So you damn sure better make sure it's worth it, you know? No mediocreness here. If you're going to blow up your life like I did, make sure it matters by creating a fantastic, beautiful future for yourself. And that's the whole purpose of life. It's not universal sovereignty. It's not, preaching. It's not being small, you
No.
know? That really strikes me when you say that, because I know that's not the first time that you and I have talked about wanting to stay under the radar, not being seen. God forbid, God forbid, should we offend anyone by anything, as though we're responsible for every other human's thoughts and feelings and everything. But how many of us do feel small? Especially now that you're out in the world, this big wide world that you don't understand, maybe you don't totally know how to fit in with. Those limiting beliefs about safety. It's safe to be small. It's safe to not use your voice. Yeah, that's cult thinking. One of the things I would like to talk about on one of these live shows too is the power of our beliefs. When we leave the religion, there's two aspects to healing. There's the religious deprogramming, which, all of you are probably in that process at some stage or another. That's, you don't believe in 1914, you don't believe in the governing body. There's like the religious doctrine part. But I think the other part that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about is the lifestyle reprogramming that has to happen when you leave the religion. So, like that feeling of being small, that is a direct side effect of being in the cult. There are other side effects, other lifestyle hindrances that we need to heal. It's how do we fit in with the world? How do we make friends? What about the way we dress? Are we comfortable? Are we comfortable being immodest? How do we view money? There's so many of these sub aspects of healing post cult that have nothing to do with maybe religion itself, but have everything to do with the lifestyle that we were programmed to live. Because it wasn't just a religion, it was an entire way of life. So I want to work through a lot of those things in these upcoming weeks too. So creating your future, that's a huge one. Another one I would like to be talking about too is recreating our identity. The identity is another huge part of healing, because it is core to healthy psychology to know who you are as a person. A healthy identity is crucial. And identity, when you're in the religion, a lot of times we lose a lot of that identity. Maybe we can, maybe our labels are part of our identity. You're a pioneer, you're an elder, you're an elder's wife, you're a publisher, you're a Jehovah's Witness. So we have these labels that are on our identity. And obviously, when you leave, all of those labels go away. Even some of the labels that stick, like mom, daughter, sister, wife, even, those relationships are not the same either. I know that, technically I'm still a daughter, but I don't feel like it because that relationship's not the same anymore. So restructuring that identity, it's part of structuring your future, but restructuring your identity to fit you post cult is really important too. What do you think about that, Noel?
Yeah, that I was just sitting here thinking about what I went through, and that one was a hard one for me because when you leave the organization and you go out into an environment that knows nothing about it, you
Hmm.
trying to explain it makes you sound crazy. So people, it's hard to get relationships. I was friends with people for 8 years, and then when I moved from one city to another, one friend finally came up to me and she goes, "Yeah, we thought you were lying about that for attention." And I'm like, in what sick world would anybody make that crap up? And so
Yeah.
that just made me realize, well, good for them that they didn't have to experience it. But my transition, it was challenging because first I didn't even have an identity when I left. I had to
Exactly.
be the husband's wife and scrub their toilets and,
Hmm.
put on the appearance that everything was perfect. And then when he got disfellowship for, adultery, everybody just left me and my kids because they were his friends. So,
Right.
I didn't have anyone. And then I went and I made friends, but because I was so kind of unaware of
Hmm.
what life was like out there, I
Hmm.
kind of fell into a group that was more like a high school group, and I didn't learn boundaries. I didn't learn, I always felt like, well, if I push back on them, or if I don't say this a certain way, then I'll get kicked out. I won't have
Yep.
anybody. But now I it's healthy to set boundaries and do it sooner. Find out who you are, how you're made up, how did your brain
Hmm.
work, and set those boundaries and set those standards. And don't, if something's beneath you, just walk away, leave it alone. There's
Yeah.
more people out there that can come to you that will be your tribe.
What do you think about recreating your identity? In what ways do you feel like you've recreated yourself?
Well, I'm not shaking and hiding in my house anymore. I overcame a domestic violence situation and I had to move 4 times. So I had adrenaline going through my body. So calming that down and then just, having confidence in myself. I've made it through this life. I'm 55 years old. I've learned some things, to lean in on my intuition because my gut most of the time it's right. And I'm always looking back, hindsight 2020, like, yeah, I should have listened. But now it's getting much more balanced. Now I moved again to closer to San Antonio, and
Hmm.
I've built friendships that are bringing value to my life, that want to see me do well.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
a high school competition. And it's just the tribe I have now is we're always trying to build each other up. We're looking out for each other, and I've created that, and now I'm using my voice to help other women, who were really bad off. I didn't think I was going to make it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun. It's fun because you're never the same person you were yesterday. You get to create who you
Hmm.
want to be every day,
Hmm.
and so the more I come away from that, the more excitement I have about building that.
Right. Nice. Nice. So you mentioned about building the tribe. That is another huge part of being able to thrive post cult is figuring out how you fit in with these people that we thought were always condemned to destruction. Now we're one of them. Now what do we do?
Right?
You know, and our beliefs have a lot to do with how we see people, how we view people. If you believe that people are evil, you're going to see that.
Hmm.
We create, I'm sure that everybody has probably heard of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias, we use it a lot in the terms of religion, but the truth is that the brain does confirmation bias every single second. Your brain's job is to prove you right. Okay? So this is why it's hard to wake people up from the religion because their brain's job is to prove them right. So they're literally going to just be discounting anything that we show them evidence-wise because their brain's job is to prove them right. So restructuring our beliefs post cult is crucial, crucial, crucial to thriving. Because as I said, if you believe something like it's impossible to make money without an education, everybody in the world is gonna chew you up and spit you out. Um, I'm too old to start over. All of those seem true to
Hmm.
you. because your brain's job is to prove you right. So we really have to challenge every thought in our head, because how do you know it's true? What, does everybody believe that? I mean, seriously, everybody believes that, you know? But if you believe it, it is true for you.
Yeah, I had a lot of those delusions for a while there. Took me about
Right?
3 years of just, hard transformation and just wanting to peel back the onions and, do the
Uh-huh.
work. And, it's so worth it. It may feel icky at the time, but it is so worth it to work through everything and get to a spot where you have, inner peace and outer peace.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, when it comes to changing our beliefs, well, we already did the big part of changing the religious beliefs, you know? So why not go a couple levels deeper? Why not dig even more and say, okay, wait a second. If I so easily bought into religion all of this time, maybe there's other stuff that's in my head that I believe to be true that isn't.
Mhm.
And empowering ourselves to question some of those is a huge part of the healing tool that I use. You know, if somebody chooses to believe something like, I'm unstoppable, I'm invincible, that's a great belief to have. That's healthy. That's supportive of your creativity. That's very supportive of your resilience. But unfortunately, most people don't have beliefs like that. They believe things like, everything's hard for me, or it's too late for me to learn, or I don't learn languages well, or whatever belief you have going on in your head. Well, part of my job is to change that, help you change that. Because if you believe that to be true, you're right. But do you really want to believe that? Do you really want to believe that it's too hard for you it's too late for you? I mean, seriously, you really want to keep that thought in your head and let your brain use confirmation bias to prove you right? Come on
Mhm.
now. Come on now. Can you think of any beliefs that you used to believe that we've neutralized,
Mm.
that have changed your life, that have helped you?
Well, the first one is I used to be scared, shitless to talk to men, just even professionally or anything, because they were in such reverence. It was like,
Mhm.
so now I don't have that problem.
Nice.
um, Gosh, you put me on the spot. My brain just went blank. I may have to just wave my hand if I can think of it. I can't think of it right now.
Okay. Okay. One of the things that I worked on when I first got out of the religion was the clan, creating your own clan. Obviously coming out of the religion, one of my beliefs was, the world's going to chew you up and spit you out, that you'll never find anybody. There is no such thing as loyalty in the world, that, there are people are selfish. Okay. So if I believe those things, confirmation bias is going to prove me right. Do I really want to be proved right that people suck?
Mm.
So one of the first things that I changed in myself was eliminating all of those beliefs through the tool of NLP. So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to think a different thought. There's a very specific process to go through so that you can get this in the unconscious part of your mind. Hold on one second. So I wanted to change that to something that was going to be supportive. Okay, so next week I'm gonna lock them in a room so that they don't bark.
Yeah.
Because, there she is, running to save the day.
Yeah.
So I wanted to change that to something healthy, obviously. Okay, sorry guys. So anyway, back to my story. I wanted to believe something like people are good. Everybody has a good heart. People want to do the right thing. People want to be helpful. Okay, so in your current experience, as you're thinking about me saying such things, that may seem insane to you if you don't believe that. But remember, it's your own confirmation bias that's proving you right. right?
Yeah.
Say something brilliant, Noelle. I'll be right back.
Well, I know for me, that if you left the organization that you were going to fail, there was no way you could succeed at anything, and that you weren't going to thrive without having your family there. And yes, it hurt really deep, not having some of the people I loved around me. But I then began to realize that my world shouldn't be dependent on them, that I need to build my own happiness and be happy with me inside. And so as soon as I stopped seeking, like if I used to feel like everything was coming at me, like I couldn't catch a break, Murphy's Law. And of course, the world was chewing me up and spitting me out. And then I slowly just started coming away from the anger, because the anger and the bitterness was definitely just making me like, everything you mentioned, I missed out on time, I missed out on education. I could have had, a better career. You just start thinking about things like that. And so you go through a grieving process, and you got to go through it, and the sooner you can start working those out with NLP, that's when I started seeing the big results. And I've made leaps and bounds. When I first started, I told myself, I gave myself 12 months. I said, you have 12 months, get busy living or get busy dying. So, and I had my earth exit date, but fortunately I got busy living, and it was little by little. And then the next thing I know, I look back and I've seen so much momentum and forward in trajectory, and it's just something I want more.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first, as I said, like that was one of the first things that I worked on, because I didn't have anybody. Literally everyone in my family was Jehovah's Witness. And so when I left, I literally didn't have, I had a cell phone and I had nobody's phone number in my cell phone because I had no one to call, And so when that was one of the first things that I started restructuring is that people are wonderful, people want to help, people are kind. And immediately my confirmation bias started proving that right. And I've told some of these stories before. Here's one of the stories. So I was in my car at a grocery store and I was back and forth between Florida to Colorado doing court. I was staying in and out of hotels, and I'm doing these custody battles, and I was crying in the car. And this older lady knocks on the car window and she says, "Are you okay, sweetie?" And I go, she goes, she says, "Let me take you to McDonald's for coffee." So she takes me to McDonald's for coffee, and I'm telling her my sob story. And she goes, "How are you going to get your kids back if you don't have a house?" And I go, "I don't know. I don't know. I can't keep a job when I have to drive cross country every 3 weeks. I don't have the money for deposits. I don't know what I'm going to do." And she says, "My neighbor died 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. Her son inherited the house. It's fully furnished, and he's just left it there. There's nobody that lives there. It's this fully furnished house." She says, "Let me call and see if he'll let you stay there." So this total stranger that just knocked on my car window calls this other total stranger, and he says, "Give her the keys to the house." And it was a fully furnished 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house that man let me stay in for an entire year without asking me for rent or anything like that. That is the power of your confirmation bias. Things like that didn't happen to me prior to changing my beliefs. When you change those beliefs, your brain literally starts sorting for different information to prove you right. So had I not changed that belief, do you think that lady would have knocked on my window? Probably not. If I'd have been sitting in that car thinking, the world sucks, everything's horrible, everybody hates me, my face would have looked different. Maybe she would have knocked on the door and I would have given her evil, "What do you want?" vibes, But the power of changing your belief changes your life. And I have so many of those stories because a lot of the work that I do is very specifically, okay, what do you believe to be true? And do you like that belief? Is it working for you? And if it's not working for you, then let's try something different. Because, I always tell people the brain receives approximately 11 million bits of data per second. And your unconscious mind only processes approximately 40,000. So we're this massive funnel of 11 million down to 40,000. And then consciously, we're only aware of 40. How does your brain choose which 40,000 bits of information to choose? How does your brain do that? Because you just threw away 10,960,000 bits of information.
Mhm.
It's your confirmation bias. If you believe the world sucks, you're right. If you believe that anything is possible, you're right. The brain just literally chooses different information in different circumstances to support you on that journey. So let's see, we've covered identity, our future, we've got our clan, we've got our beliefs. Okay, so I guess we at some point probably would talk about trauma, healing some sort of trauma. How do you think this has helped? How does this specific tool help you neutralize some of the traumas from the past?
Ooh. So when I first began my journey 3 years ago after the DV situation, I had adrenaline. I would be sitting on the couch just watching a calm show, and my body would feel like I was on a roller coaster ride, or I just got in a wreck, or Jason was chasing me down Elm Street or something.
Yeah.
And I was so frustrated because I just wanted to relax. I physically could not. And so, starting NLP and start, addressing those fears, because I had some real heavy fears.
Legit. Yeah, legit.
That's the word I'm looking for, legit
Yeah.
fears. I used to look over my shoulder, in my rearview mirror for somebody coming after me. So now, I've been able to really realize that, I am safe. I've taken the necessary steps to make sure that I'm safe. I'm aware of my surroundings. I've grown my confidence. And I don't have adrenaline in my body all the time. It may happen every once in a while. Something crazy goes through work and it's been a stressful 2 weeks. But now I'm able, when I go to bed, my mind stops racing. I'm able to go to sleep. I can cook without burning my house down. I'm remembering things more and more because when you have CPTSD, you get neurological dysregulation and you got to work on your neuroplasticity. And so that's what I've been doing with you is exercising that gray matter, that beautiful big machine up here and reworking it and rewiring it. And it really surprises me. I'll get on work and I'll think I've missed something. I'm like, oh no, I forgot to schedule this. And I go back, I'm like, oh, I did it 2 days ago. Look at my brain, it's healing. I can't rave enough about this.
Okay, say something else super smart while I go kill my dogs.
Oh my gosh, you keep putting me on the spot. Let's see, I wrote some notes. Let's see. Goodness gracious, why would she put me on the spot like that? Trauma. So trauma, it comes in all forms and fashions. If you've been in an accident, if you've had a divorce, you've been fired from your job, you've lost a loved one, the body remembers. It stores it in every inch of your body. And so it's very important that you learn to recognize what could make you go into fight or flight so that you're able to, put in good coping skills. And especially with NLP, it helps me to kind of shift my brain to address what it really is, or go dig a little bit deeper. Like, what is the root of causing this? Is it my inner child? Is it my teenager? So I have different, levels of trauma. So sometimes different level of my prior personalities come out, but you got to sit and deal with it. And NLP it's just like taking a disk out of a computer and putting another one in.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the multiple personalities. I have actually worked with DID, formerly known as multiple personality disorder, as multiple times over the last 20 years. And I found it very easy actually, because the truth is we all have multiple personalities.
Yeah.
We all have this one voice that says this and this other voice that says this. We all have on one hand, I want to do this, but on the other hand, and literally all of that is it's an internal conflict. It's an internal conflict of values. It's an internal conflict of your belief systems. And when you fracture your entire life by blowing up a religion, that becomes really, really common because you've lost beliefs. So on one hand, you have this, but on the other hand, you have this. On this hand, you don't believe in God, but on this hand, you don't know what to do. So part of the work that we do too is resolving these conflicts so that you can have that congruence, that inner wholeness, so that you don't have the war that's going on in your head. Because you know what, when a part of you wants to do this and the other part of you wants to do this, you are going to be at an impasse.
Mhm.
Because no matter which voice loses, you lost, because you are those voices.
Yeah.
When there's a part of you that wants to do this, the reason this voice wants that for you, there's a positive intent. There's something important about, you know, losing weight. Let's just say losing weight. This part of you wants to lose weight. Well, there's a good reason. There's a good motive for that. It's probably so that you have more energy, so that you're more vibrant, and then you have this other part that says, I hate the gym. I'd rather stay home. Well, why does this part want to stay home? Because it wants you to be comfortable, because it wants you to accept yourself. So, you see how you have these two values that are both good, but they're at a conflict. So one of the most important processes I probably do is helping people resolve those conflicts. The weight is one, but you've got a plethora of inner conflicts. Maybe it's, on one hand, you're a wonderful person and you're deserving, but on the other hand, you don't feel like it. But on the other hand, it's not safe to express yourself. So that's probably one of the biggest things I think I work on with people too, is
Gotcha.
resolving those inner conflicts.
Yep, you worked on that with me. Had a major tug of war going on inside. I
A lot of
remember
people
when I
do.
first exited, it was the guilt was just insurmountable. But then I started doing the research, and
Yeah.
I just became a sponge. I just wanted to learn everything that I could possibly learn. And the more that I did that, things became more clear, and um, just that really just keeps that inner conflict down. Just learning
Right.
for yourself, come to your own conclusion.
Exactly. Um, Building our self-esteem. Also, I think probably the one thing that we have a tendency to do too is be mad at those voices. The voice that doesn't want you to go to the gym is not evil. It actually wants something good for you. So sometimes we end up kind of like downing ourselves too much, being too harsh and being too critical, when really what we need is understanding and acceptance and finding that wholeness. Anybody who's listening, please give us some ideas of what you'd like other weeks to include. I know we're kind of just covering a whole bunch of information. This is the first live. So I'm kind of wanting to like work out kinks and figure out the logistics and see how this is going to work, which apparently is going to include giving my dogs Benadryl next week so they shut up and go to sleep. Actually, they're not usually this bad. I'm babysitting dogs.
Oh
So
boy.
the two dogs that I'm babysitting are outside barking, and my dogs are like, we hate you. Go away.
Well, I have Chihuahuas, and they're being very good right now.
I have like 6 total dogs right now, half of which are not mine. So-
Well, this breed Chihuahuas are a little rambunctious, but mine are just, they're like, nah, we're not interested in any of that.
Right. Yeah, so if anybody else has any other topics, we can talk about dealing with the shunning, recreating our tribe, unhealthy habits that maybe we dive into because of the religion. Sometimes when you're dealing with depression, um, there's unhealthy habits that might kick up. Dating post cult.
Oh, dating. Oh, that's a fun one.
Dating post cult.
One of the first things
Go for it. I'll be right back. I'm gonna scream it down.
Okay, one of the first things that I learned when I got out and with my first, religious recovery coach, was to love myself, because we were taught to love ourselves last. And that one was a really big one for me. He would have me sit there with my hand over my heart and tell myself that I love myself. And I felt like that was just the weirdest thing. But let me tell you, it did work. It does work. Gosh, I can't remember his name. I wish I could share his name with you because he's really amazing. But starting with, that self-love and taking interest in who you are and the maybe the things that you put aside that you had love for, like maybe hobbies or hiking or something like that. Get back to doing the things you love when you build yourself back up. Take that time, and that time is considered, your self-care, self-love time. It's very
Mm-hmm.
important to do that.
You said something a little bit ago too about the neuroplasticity.
Mhm.
So when it comes to creating your new identity, I think sometimes too, one topic we might want to talk about too is increasing our neuroplasticity through creativity. Because as you're sitting here post cult trying to figure out what the heck you want to do with your life, sometimes we draw a blank. I don't know. I never really thought about it before. And part of that is because we've lost some neuroplasticity. you know, we forgot how to be creative. We forgot how
Mhm.
to use our imagination. All of, we've got these neural pathways that are all set in stone, you know, and stimulating that creative side, stimulating neuroplasticity is crucial to recreating yourself on the outside. We could talk about different techniques for doing that. Dra- learning a learning something new. I a lot of times will encourage a client, go learn a musical instrument. I don't even care if you ever actually learn a musical instrument. You're stimulating your brain in ways that it hasn't been
Mhm.
stimulated before. Go learn Chinese. Not because I want you to learn Chinese. You may never actually learn Chinese, but you're stimulating parts of the brain that have been stagnant for a really long time. Pick up an art, even if you never learned how to do it. Even if you're terrible at it, we need to stimulate the mind in order to come up with creative solutions. How often is it that we have a problem, we have a challenge, and no matter how much we stare at it, we can't come up with an answer? Well, that's probably because sometimes our problems require a creative, imaginative solution that's very outside of the box. And unless we've encouraged neuroplasticity, we're going to just look at the same problem with the same old solutions and not see our way around it at all, you
Mhm.
know, which I know a lot of people struggle with that. But once you've started stimulating that imagination, that creativity, and you've increased that neuroplasticity, you can really start overcoming huge challenges because you're different, because your brain is functioning more coherently, because you're more whole as a person, because you don't have, the CPUs, you don't have your energy being divided by managing all of these inner fires. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, it definitely makes
Okay.
sense.
Well, okay. So for our first introductory video, what other ideas can we throw out there?
One for me, I mean, I come from recruitment, so I'm a big networker. But
Mm,
one topic that could be is like, how do you make new friends? If you
okay.
are shy or you're fearful or you're scared of having your voice be heard or you don't want to be seen, how the heck do you get out there? So, maybe have an overview of some things that I know for me, I went on network groups and I've met like single
Uh-huh.
women groups or I'd find recruiter groups or if there's a kayaking group.
Mm-hmm.
I did put on there for free guitar lessons, but nobody gave me any, so I'm still working on that one. But that's what I did, and every time, when I moved here to New Braunfels, I left my Houston crew, my friends and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
bolted out here because, my was just spiraling. And once I got ready, which was this year, it took me 2 years to kind of get worked through and get ready to socialize again. But that's what I
Mm-hmm.
did. I just went on, meetups or Facebook events and I found local things. I would,
Uh-huh.
if there's a bookstore, you can sit in there and you can talk to people who comes in there and they have coffee. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do to meet people. So maybe
Yeah.
the thing out there, along with maybe dating, that could be a good one to put together.
Actually, you know what? I coach a lot of people on dating post cult, post cult
Yeah.
intimate relationships.
Well, it's going to be interesting to date with this new me here. I'm still not ready, but it'll be interesting to see with the new mindset and confidence that I have and boundaries that I've established.
Mhm.
Probably would be more positive.
is going to be so much more fun.
Right?
It's so much more fun than having a
Yeah,
chaperone.
because the apocalypse I had before didn't work.
Me either. Apparently, obviously, if you look at my flow chart of ex-husbands, clearly dating
Right,
Nicole
yeah,
wasn't
the
working.
lessons learned.
Yeah, that's a topic that we could cover. Um, Give me some ideas, guys. Give me some ideas. Okay, so we're running right at about an hour. So I guess for the first episode, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm figuring out how to share the link so that next week we can have multiple people on the screen sharing their ideas with us. Give me some ideas. Otherwise, I will pick my own idea.
Yeah, I'm looking at this on the phone, so everybody's like this big, and the text is like -3 fonts, so I can't see anything.
Okay. Yeah. I see. I see that. It's on the screen. That's because it's on
Yeah.
your phone, I guess, huh?
Oh, it's super tiny.
Okay. All right.
But that's cool.
Okay, guys. We'll be back next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and my dogs will be on Benadryl so that there's no noise. It will be silent. All right. Thank you for doing this first one with me, Noelle.
Thanks for inviting me and putting
Thank
me on
you
the
for my
spot.
5 people that are watching me live.
Well, there's many more
Invite
to
more
come.
people. Invite more people. So now I've got the kinks worked out. Let's build this up because I think these discussions are crucial for us figuring out how to thrive on the outside. Okay, guys, thank you for joining us, and we will be back next week. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.